By the way, this awkward silence is why I usually play music at the beginning of the meetings, but couldn't find anything good today. Nothing seemed quite appropriate for the meeting. We'll give it about 2 more minutes and then we'll call the meeting to order. So you got time to grab some coffee or tea. There you go. I don't drink coffee. I'm a Diet Coke drinker. That's right, Diet Coke fan. All right, it is 3:30. I think a couple more people might be jumping on. So I just want to give it a few, well, we're going to get started. It does not look like everyone is on yet, but just in the spirit of beginning things on time, I will call the meeting to order. We do have some bureaucratic stuff to just get through because we got to get through the bureaucracy. So the first is informal statements and proposals. And so I'm opening the floor for any informal statements. I would ask that if any of those informal statements are related to President Golden, that we might reserve that for the main discussion time. So if there are any other types of informal statements, I'll open the floor for that. Excellent. Hearing none. I need a motion to approve the minutes from September 14th.
So moved.
Thank you, Whitney Bailey. A second?
Second.
I think I heard Jeff Pulaski's voice second that. All in favor, just raise your hands and say aye. Excellent. Any opposed? Wonderful. The minutes pass. A quick...
Alex.
Yes.
I'm sorry. There's another meeting happening. There was a revised link sent out and there are people gathering in another Zoom room. Are we on an older link right now?
I don't believe so.
I think they're using the link on the bottom for next meeting in 2 weeks.
It is possible that people clicked on the link on the bottom, which takes you to next week's.
Oh, that could be what happened. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And Alex, some of us don't have a webcam. So when you say raise your hand, is it a yes or raise hand in the participants box?
Do it in the participants box. Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to leave this meeting and go to the other one and let everybody know.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Chase. I appreciate it. I'm going to move to the committee reports. I'm going to go a little out of order. So Whitney Bailey, Rules Committee, do you have candidates that you would like to put forward for committees or for the Senate?
Yes. Can I share my screen?
I think so. Let me hold on. Go ahead.
The Rules Committee has the following nominations. For the Academic Affairs Committee, Jessica Newman as the LAS Social Science Representative. For the Court of Academic Appeals, Gina Brown. And then for the Rules Committee, Susan Castro is currently on sabbatical, and we needed to have a temporary replacement this year for her. So Susan Sterrett has agreed to serve in those roles for the committees. Then we had 2 senator openings. One was a time conflict and one was a vacancy. And so those are for LAS, Natural Science, and College of Health Professions.
Thank you. So what I ask you to do, we're going to take these all as one lump group. This doesn't need a second because it came from committee. So in the participants dialogue, could you please just raise your hand to vote in favor of approving these people? Your virtual blue hand, if you will. All right. Excellent. I'm seeing so many blue hands. It's wonderful. And then I'm going to clear these all. If you would like to vote against approving anybody, please raise your blue hand. Excellent. Thank you for everyone's service. There is one little bit of business that needs to be taken care of, which is part of the president's report, which is this elimination of midterm grades. As you saw, Gina Crabtree and the registrar's office is proposing that because of the activity that SEAS has seen positively and the just general guidance that faculty give to students, that there's been a significant decrease in the use of midterm report grading submission. So they would like to do away with that and just allow SEAS to be sort of the online documentation for that, and ask us as faculty to just work with our students. So I'm just want to see if there are any concerns about eliminating the midterm grade process and just using SEAS. And if you have a concern, please just unmute yourself.
I have a little bit of concern for people that don't like post grades on Blackboard or similar, because SEAS only tells you if you're doing poorly. And what about the students who need reports for athletics or fraternities or sororities, or just want to know what their grade is?
Yeah, I think for sure this would put us in a place where as faculty, we're going to have to be more responsible. I shouldn't say more responsible. We will be responsible for keeping students aware of what's going on. Gina, I see your virtual hand, so I'll let you jump in there.
Yes, so I just wanted to clarify that for athletics purposes, the Athletic Student Services area does utilize within the Student Success Collaborative or Navigate, they utilize what used to be Grades First, EAB purchase Grades First. So they send out through a separate process to gather information about the progress of their students. And I think faculty may also be aware within the last year or so, they've also been able to be established as get observer access to Blackboard. So they have various ways that they are utilizing system to ensure that they know how students are doing, how student athletes are doing, and can reach out and work with them to support them. So I think the question raised about faculty who don't use Blackboard is a good one. And I think, Alex, you're correct. I also would say, I just want to clarify, the registrar's office is absolutely in favor of any use to, by faculty to keep students informed of how they're doing. We think midterm is too late to tell students how they're doing, and we feel like faculty do a really great job of that through SEAS. Like she said, I think it was Brittany that said that those are being identified as risks, and that's very true. But we also know that faculty are communicating with students through Blackboard or other means. But my concern is that adding those grades in through Banner is an additional step that most faculty are frankly not taking. And now we also have this kind of weird, these different F grades. And because midterm grades do not roll to academic history, students will see those FN and FQs and we're out confusion. So that's really the basis of the proposal. I would just say if faculty do not support it, registrar's office is fine to go either way. I just believe there are some reasons that it might make sense not to do it anymore. So I just wanted to make that clear that I'm fine either way. This is not necessarily, certainly not about any work on the registrar's office part, because there's not a problem either way.
Great. Thank you, Gina. I know the executive team discussed this already. So are there any other comments? John, I saw your hand up a minute ago, but it's down now. So I don't know if you want, John Hammond.
My only comment was just in Gina's report pointing out that like only 11% of faculty in fall 2019 had done the midterm grades. So it's not that that's being highly utilized either.
So I guess just in the expediency of time and wanting to make sure we get to everything, if you have feedback that you'd like to share, please feel free to email me that feedback and I'll pass it along to Gina. So thanks, everyone. With that, I'm going to launch into sort of our new business for today. But before we do that, I'm going to take a point of sort of presidential privilege, and I have a statement I want to read, and then we'll get moving. So there you go. First, I just want to thank all of you for being here, senators, guests. I want to start by saying thank you to President Jay Golden. Although Jay only served in his role for 9 months on our campus, he has clearly demonstrated a care for faculty, staff, and students. One of the things I've appreciated about him in the short time I worked with him was that I always had a seat at the table, no matter how much support, or more importantly, resistance I gave him. Even if he moved in a direction differently than what I recommended, at the end of the day, I was never left out of a conversation. It's a reminder that it takes a thick skin to be president and to allow faculty to have a seat at the table. I'm sorry to see his tenure end as early as it did. As my humanities friends will tell you, reality and truth are only part of the public perception of the events in our lives. I am willing to cede that there may be a reality that the faculty, staff, and students did not see that required such an abrupt departure. However, at this point, the perceptions put the future of our university at risk. As a human being, I of course have concerns for Jay and his future, but my role as Senate President means my concerns for the future of our institution must be even greater. Nobody can deny the perception as a president who was well liked by faculty, staff, and students made a value judgment that was disliked by donors who have loud voices in our community and was then dismissed by the Board of Regents for that judgment. My greatest worry is for the next person who steps into the permanent role of president at our university. I worry that they will be able to effectively and quickly make decisions without a constant fear of losing their job because they have displeasured the board. I worry that they will second guess themselves around each corner for fear of an angry donor. Finally, I worry about a taller hurdle of trust that the next president will have to pass with our university community to demonstrate a commitment to shared governance and not just commitment to select members of the Wichita State community. At a time where we are dealing with significant budget cuts, a pandemic, and now a controversial resignation of the university president, the Board of Regents has a responsibility to rebuild the trust with faculty, staff, students, and the larger WSU community. I believe this will mean careful consideration of how the search process moves forward, who is appointed as interim president, and how the various constituents of our campus are engaged moving forward. With that said, I do want to publicly acknowledge that I am pleased that Dr. Rick Muma has agreed to once again step into the role of acting president. In my short time as Senate president, and long before that, I have seen a commitment from Rick for shared governance, transparency, and an inclusive campus that cares for our students. Wichita State has some critical decisions to make over the next months, and his deep knowledge of our institution and his past experience as acting president will make him an invaluable asset during this time. I also just want to point out that that statement is mine. I'm not speaking for the faculty as a whole in that moment, but just my own. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to President Rick Muma for some statements and then open the floor for discussion.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. And I appreciate the opportunity to address the Senate today. We know everyone has questions and will be searching for answers, and I cannot give you answers about Dr. Golden's departure. Please understand that privacy laws do not allow us to provide further information, but I do want to make sure everyone knows we appreciate Dr. Golden's dedication and hard work during his time at WSU, and we wish him much success in his future endeavors. We also want to wish his wife, Dina Golden, well in this transition as well. We're committed to moving forward and not looking in the rearview mirror. I know this is hard right now, but I would encourage you to consider this as a path. We are an institution that exists for our students of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We do not exist, succeed, or fail because of one person. We have faced transitions before, and I'm reminded of the resilience of our entire campus community almost daily as we have adjusted to COVID-19 during these past months. We know what it's like to navigate through the unexpected and how to turn challenge into growth. I know some of you are concerned about the status of the initiatives we are working on, and over the coming weeks, we'll be evaluating how best to move forward. But many of them will likely continue as we were committed to them before, even before Dr. Golden arrived. I don't know how long I'm gonna be in this role, but in it or not, and as provost, if not, I am committed to open, honest conversations and the continued engagement in shared governance. I can only control my behavior, and as long as I'm in a position to influence others in this regard, this will continue. Upon learning of Dr. Golden's resignation, I was in communication with all the Senate leaders, faculty, staff, students, deans, and others, and I continued those conversations throughout the weekend. And now here we are today. I ask you to support your fellow colleagues and students. I thank you in advance for your cooperation and dedication as we work to move forward together. Thank you again, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So with that said, I'm gonna open up the floor for discussion. I'd like to put a few just ground rules in place to make this as orderly as possible. Same rules as always apply. If you would like to speak, please feel free to, it's easiest if you're willing, if you will raise your virtual hand, but Prakash, I see you. So I will make sure I call on you first. Otherwise, you can also put a comment in the chat. Likewise, Senator Bailey and I are both sort of monitoring comments and things in the chat. And when appropriate, I will also bring those in. I'll also let you know that my intention at the end of this meeting is to sort of take the general thoughts and ideas of the Senate and share them with President and CEO of the Board of Regents, Blake Flanders. So that he just knows that what we've discussed and has a sense of where we are as a faculty. So with that said, I'll open up the floor. Go ahead.
This is for Dr. Mumo. You said that you cannot share any information about Dr. Golden's departure. Does it mean you have some information?
I don't have any information about his decision to resign.
Okay. Do you know whether it is related to the cancellation of Ivanka Trump's speech?
Again, I don't have any information about the why he made that decision.
Was he asked to resign?
I don't know. I don't have information on anything around his resignation.
Yeah, I will tell you, John Rolfe made a statement on KMUW that if this was about Ivanka, that they would have asked him to resign or fired him in June. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was his statement. And I think that's the only thing we're going to get, quite frankly. These personnel records are tightly kept. And I think one thing that I've learned is that a president of the university is not an employee necessarily of the university, but they're hired by the Board of Regents. They work for the Board of Regents as employees, which I think makes this even more difficult as far as getting information. And so I mean, that is the thing that frustrates me, is I don't think we will get an answer to that. Other comments? Chase, I see your hand.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you, Rick. Can you give us any information about what the process will look like for a future search for the president and what faculty representation on whatever search committee will emerge will look like?
Are you asking me, Chase? Yeah. So I don't know the answer to that question. You know, the options are a closed or open search. The search committee typically has representation from the faculty, staff, and students on campus, and then community leaders, business leaders. And I would assume that would be the case going forward. It always has been the case. So, yeah.
I'll also let you know, Chase, in sort of the spirit of transparency, I have been in contact with President Flanders over the weekend a little bit and expressed to him some of these concerns already. And I told him that, in my opinion, the board needed to carefully consider a open process versus a closed process. And because I sort of the same thing I put in the statement, I believe that the Board of Regents has to work to sort of rebuild some trust. And so he heard that. So I'm trying to press that as well, that be taken seriously about how they do this process and who's included in that process.
Thank you, Alex. I agree with that completely, and I would also encourage an open process. Thanks.
Yeah. Terrence?
Sorry, I know we're not allowed to look backwards, but I think it might be appropriate to have some sort of understanding of why this occurred. I mean, a sudden resignation is quite worrisome, but if it's a private thing, I get it. But I think it's something that needs to be understood, because if there's something in the culture at WSU that needs to be addressed, I think we need to address it, and then we can move forward.
Aaron?
I just wanted to thank you for your statement, Alex, and let you know that I agree with the concerns that you raise. And I think I would appreciate if the Board of Regents would address those concerns, and certainly would like them to take them seriously. I do have a question as well for Rick. I know you said that you were confident that most, if not all, of the university's current initiatives would continue on as planned. I'm wondering if you could comment on the recent Convergent Science Initiative in particular, and if you've had any discussions about that and what its status is likely to be in the coming months and years, and what's going on with it.
Yeah, so Aaron, that's a good question. I knew that would probably come up. I mean, as you know, the university is a research university, and we've always been focused around growing faculty-led research, and the whole Convergent Science Initiative was Dr. Golden's way of moving that forward. I don't see any reason why we would stop that. We've already awarded the first 4 initiatives. There was lots and lots of participation among faculty, so I don't see that stopping at all. I'm actually excited about it continuing to go forward.
Thanks. Jay Price? I think you're still muted. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I have a couple of questions from folks. One is the non-disclosure agreements for faculty on searches. Can we not have those, and do we have any capacity to insist on, if there's going to be faculty involvement, and the non-disclosure agreement is not part of it? Enough of these. The other part of it, is there going to be a chance for the regents to talk to us as a faculty? I would like to have a regent speak to the faculty senate, perhaps more than one.
Jay, let me address that last part. As I mentioned, I did speak briefly with Blake yesterday, and he offered to try to get a regent to this meeting. He wasn't sure he could or not, but he would try. The executive team discussed that, and we decided that we knew that they wouldn't provide us with many answers, if any, for this meeting, and so we didn't want a distraction this time. But I fully believe we could have a regent come to a future meeting, and again, I don't know how satisfying it will be, but yeah, I think that's something that they would absolutely make available to us if we requested. Probably one of the more local regents, like Regent Hutton or Regent Rolfe. So I'm happy to request that from President Flanders. In regards to NDAs, I mean, we can always ask. But I do know that one thing that I will say, having been on the search committee for President Golden, is that it's interesting to sort of see the privacy that these candidates desire, because whenever you're looking for another position, when that gets out, it does put risk of what your standing is at your current university. And in fact, there was one candidate who I believe it was leaked out that they were part of another search, and they lost they're no longer the president of the university they were at. Which is one of the reasons I think for these NDAs is to protect the candidates' privacy. That's not an endorsement or a condemnation of NDAs, but I'm just telling you, I think that will be the answer that we get when we say, can we not have NDAs? So that's just my feeling. I don't know, Rick, if you have anything that you would want to add to that.
Not really. I mean, it's really up to the board to decide that, Jay. Again, I think it's a good idea to express these desires, to see if there's any possibility of having them make a different decision going forward. It's worth bringing up.
Thank you.
There are a couple of things in the chat that I wanted to bring up. Nick Salome mentioned if Jay Golden's departure is due to donors being unhappy with him, hence, if that is the case, then it is not clear to me if the Board of Regents represents the students, faculty, and staff. Yeah. Jolyn asked, and this will be a question for you, Rick. Can you share the status for searching and filling the VP of Workforce Diversity, HR, and Professional Development? That was a new position that Dr. Golden had approved. Is that going to be halted, or will that proceed moving forward?
So we're still evaluating all these different initiatives. At the moment, it's continuing to move forward. Remember, I'm acting president, and it's going to be difficult for me to just being in that kind of a role as president to make some major shifts and changes in some of these initiatives. And I also want to let you know that we have a little bit of budget challenges around that as well going forward next fiscal year, because there hasn't been any budget identified for that position. So we're currently evaluating, but for the moment, it's continuing to move forward.
Chase.
Thanks, Alex. I have a few questions regarding what Rick said just now. I'm curious, can you share any information about money that is committed to President Golden for his departure, or what the university is expending there? And secondly, just a question and a comment. I'm concerned, given the situation that has just unfolded, about the caliber, the quality of the applicant pool that we might expect for a future external search from candidates who might not want to put themselves through the ringer like President Golden just did. And so I'd just like to say that I know that many faculty and students share that concern. But are we, is it absolutely certain that we are going to be having another external search for this position? And if I can just ask candidly to Rick, are you a candidate for the permanent presidency?
Okay, so the last question, I am not a candidate for the permanent presidency. Your first question, Chase, you had three questions there, right?
Who's paying for Jay, if anyone?
Yeah, that'll be something that the Board of Regents would have to answer. And then I think there was another question in there too.
I asked if we're definitely going to have an external search, because I know that many people are concerned about what types of applicants would subject themselves to this type of search.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that they wouldn't do an external search for a university like ours. It's an important university to the state and to the region. You know, I guess anybody could think that just because of this experience, that why would anybody want to be a president of Wichita State? It doesn't, you don't have to scratch too far in the surface of the literature out there to understand that we're not the only university this has ever happened to. These things happen. So I don't see this being something that's going to be permanently damaging to the university. I mean, you know, Chase, this is a great place to work. We have a lot going on at the university and the community, and we're not going away. We're relatively strong, even in the budgetarily, even in the light of COVID. So this will be an attractive place for lots of people to consider.
Thank you.
And Chase, one thing that I want to address again, just to share a few of the things that I shared with President Flanders. I also stress that because of everything that's going on right now, there's got to be consideration about how we move forward in the timeline in which we move forward, because there's a lot at stake for us, and a lot of difficult decisions to be made. And I worry personally about someone coming in who has to learn on the job, you know, for a month or two, and some pivotal timetables around that. So I think that, you know, you raised some, I think some good points around that, and good questions. So Neil, go ahead.
On the question of what kind of search to have, whether it's an open or closed search, I, like probably all of faculty senators and faculty members and students, would prefer an open search. And I would like to raise a different kind of reason, more of an operational reason about it. While I think beyond the fact of the idea that faculty and students could have more input, also I think that an open search actually could be more effective. And one of the reasons is it would allow for more feedback to the candidates about what kind of institution we are. It would also allow more people to be involved in seeing the candidate working in something like the environment that they would have to work in, which, if you notice how Jay worked, it was very different than meeting with a group of 20 people who understandably were having NDAs and then working with the Board of Regents. He's going to have to, the new president will have to do all those things, but a lot of other things too. And while I, like the rest of us, will never know all that led to this particular catastrophe, that I think part of it clearly is that the Regents and Jay Golden had mutually incommensurate understandings of what the job was. And that didn't seem to act, and we'd hoped that had gotten better after Apocalypse Thursday, but it clearly did not enough. And so I think an open process is actually a better process and gets us better outcomes than a closed process in this situation. Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions or comments for myself, for Rick, for statements, information that you feel needs to be shared with the board? Jim, I see your hand.
Yes, just something I'd like to be kept in mind through all of this is that given how much that both the students and faculty felt that President Golden had our backs, things we need to keep in mind in addition to whether we can recruit a good presidential candidate is, future recruitment of faculty, future recruitment of students. Us being known as a place where the president really, takes the students seriously is a great recruitment thing. And I would like to see that happen again with our next president.
Thanks. Jay.
I was getting used to being the other Jay, unfortunately. I'm not sure I'm happy to return to that solitary role anymore. Do the regents, obviously there are a lot of background issues that have happened with this. Do the regents, are they conscious of how much pain this has caused? It would be an acknowledgement that this is painful. This is not just a pro forma executive decision. I think, to use the Leadership Center's term, speaking to loss is something that's going to be needed. Any thoughts on that?
I'm sure I'm sure I can't, well, I don't want to speculate, but yeah, I'm sure that they understand that the difficulties, that any decision, and I think we're also speculating a lot, so I want to just point that out. This is all under speculation that that Jay resigned unwillingly, and again, this is about perspective and perception, not about what necessarily may be a reality or truth. So I want to just acknowledge that because I think that's important. But I do believe that if this was something that if the board has asked for that resignation, I can't believe that they would have taken such a decision lightly or without an understanding of what the fallout from that would be. I would be surprised. They are very intelligent people in my experience. Rick, I don't know if there's something you could add to that.
No, I just kind of echo that. I've worked with them for a number of years, like Flanders and all the 9 regents, or they all come in different staggered terms, but very thoughtful group of individuals. They understand the pain that this brings to the campus.
Yeah. There have been a couple of questions that came to me via email, and as well as a couple of statements. So I did want to bring those to the group as well for just public consumption and answer. So one question is that it seems that the donors being displeased is based on anecdotal evidence. Have there been any polls to find out if that decision made on June 5th was universally disliked by all stakeholders of the university? In addition to polling all stakeholders, students, faculty, staff, it would be nice to poll all the donors to figure out the impact of that decision on future fundraising. That's above my pay grade. So, Rick, do you have an answer to what kind of surveys may have been done with our donor base?
There's been some analyses done primarily through the foundation. Nothing, in a systematic survey kind of way in the community, but there has been some look into some of what, if any, decreases in donations may have occurred.
Yeah,
but I don't have that information to share.
Another question that came to me in email is that has President Golden completely resigned from WSU or only from the presidency? Meaning, is he still on our faculty with the faculty status?
President Golden did not have a faculty appointment at the university. He just was the president of the university, and the regents typically do not give faculty appointments in more recent times. That was sort of the practice many years ago, but that's not what they're doing anymore.
Thanks. A couple other questions that have come into me. This was a question that was asked. I've answered it, but I will bring it up here just to make sure that it gets answered publicly. There was a question if the WSU Faculty Senate can formally request K-Board to disclose all discussions beginning this past summer until as recently as yesterday on President Golden vis-a-vis WSU donor attitudes under the Kansas Open Records Act. If not, why not? Well, yes, we can do a FOIA, I believe, for anything. And there is a budget for the Faculty Senate. It's not substantial, and it's usually used to pay for travel to K-Board, but this year, or so far, K-Board has been virtual. So I would assume that is something that that could be done if we wanted to. I am hesitant to do so for a couple of reasons. One is that I don't think we're going to get anything. Most of it, if it's personnel related, I don't think they'll share it with us. But if that's something that we want to, and I also think other news organizations will do that for us. But if that's something that we as a Senate want to take on, I'm happy to look into it and investigate that. There was also a question about if the university can initiate a formal procedure to rename the YMCA building on WSU campus. I will turn that over to Rick with one thought, which is I believe that building is not owned by the university, it's owned by the YMCA. So the YMCA would have to make that decision. Is that correct? Like that's not a university call, that would be a YMCA call? Rick, you muted.
The YMCA building is a building that is owned, operated, and managed by the YMCA, and the university did not name the YMCA. And as is often the case in naming of buildings, the building name was derived from substantial donor contributions that helped make that facility, the YMCA, a reality for the campus in this community. So we didn't have any input into naming of that particular part of the facility.
Yeah. Chase, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Alex. I would just say if people in the Senate are interested in core requests or FOIA or anything like that, it may be true that the resignation letter is a personnel issue and is private, but the president as a public employee, his emails or something like that would be public information that could be subject to a core requests. But a question that I have for Rick, there were a number of projects that the president was spearheading that were at various positions in the pipeline. I was just wondering if you could give us an update about whether they're going forward. Things that come to mind are repurchasing of the flats, his plan for the new bridge to the new business school, and discussions that were being made about tearing down Cessna Stadium. Are those still going forward?
So the repurchasing of the flats, that was already completed. That was, I believe, approved at the June board meeting. Could have been May as well. So that's already been completed. The bridge is still a project that wasn't necessarily a project of Dr. Golden. He supported it. It was a project that was developed alongside the design of the business building. And of course, we would only build that bridge if we raised private funds to do that. And in terms of Cessna Stadium, tearing that down, we have approval to do that from the board, but there's no plans to do that at this particular time.
Thank you.
There was another statement that was sent to me by a senator asking to be kept anonymous, so I do want to read it. Steve Clark is quoted in numerous stories as saying Golden, quote, wasn't a good cultural fit for our Midwest values here. I don't think he was very good at balancing the interests of all the university stakeholders, the students, alums, faculties, and donors, and considering all things, I think it's better for him and much better for the university. So that was a Steve Clark quote. Frankly, it is chilling and mortifying to hear these words from someone with an incredible amount of sway at this university. It worries me tremendously how this will impact the next presidential search. His remarks are clearly and patently false, as the students and faculty felt he did a tremendous job balancing stakeholder interests. Indeed, I would say that as Clark, who does not have a good sense of how to balance the interests of WSU stakeholders. How many other presidents received a letter of recommendation from the newspaper of their former university? A colleague commented that they were hoping to wake up today to discover it was all a bad dream or a misunderstanding. I share that sentiment, and I'm sure I'm with the majority of our faculty in that. We're at an all-time high when it comes to anxiety. To have so much uncertainty at a time like this, what does this mean for the future direction of the university? I think I just wanted to read those statements. I think as far as the future of the university, I just want to say, I know from my conversations with Rick and myself, I think we are both committed to working together to keep the motion of the university going forward. And whoever the next permanent president is, helping them to keep it going forward, and finding the right person for that position. Jay Price, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm getting a couple of questions. One is, can the Senate withhold endorsement of the new president if it's not an open search? So that was one question that came to me. The other question is, now that there is not going to be an inauguration in October, how are plans for a number of those activities that were to have taken place in October going to plan out?
I can speak to the first question about an endorsement or a non-endorsement. So if it's a closed search, I think clearly we don't have any ability to endorse or not endorse until after the fact. And I think we have to consider that carefully. If it's an open search, then I think, yeah, I mean, my hope is that if they do an open search, they'll have a chance to meet with the community, with the faculty and constituency. And then I think we could collectively have a voice in that. So it depends on how that all unfolds. As to October plans, President Muma.
So, Jay, many of those things will continue to roll. I'm not sure exactly which ones you're talking about, but for instance, Dr. Golden had proposed for us to have a community-wide conversation about development around the periphery of the current campus. So that we're still moving forward with that. And that's something that we've been talking about for a number of years. And he just provide a different sort of energy to that. And that's actually going to happen on Wednesday. Other things, can you give me some ideas about some of the other items that you were thinking about?
Well, obviously the installation was a big part of it, but a lot of things with the 125th, and because that week of his installation was going to be part of a larger set of activities.
Yeah, and so we'll get more information out on that from Stratcom about that, but a lot of those 125th kinds of celebrations will continue in some form. It may not be as condensed as it was originally planned because of the installation. Part of it was the commencement makeup celebration for the spring commencement being canceled. That's still going forward on October 10th. And so.
There's a question in the chat, and then I'll turn over to you, Terrence. A suggestion, there's some questions about whether Steve Clark will be involved with the next search. Of course, again, the Board of Regents are the people who employ and a president, and they're the ones who put together the search committee. But I think that I have heard from numerous people a statement of sort of we would not support Steve Clark chairing this search, and that is something that will be shared with the that I'll share with the regents as well. If there's people, though, I should say, who feel strongly that Steve should who should serve as the chair of that, please let me know. Send me an email. I want to make sure that as many voices as possible are represented. But I've heard from a variety of people throughout the campus community to not have that happen. Terrence.
I just want to be careful what I say because this is being streamed on YouTube. So I just feel like you made a lot of positive changes, particularly to the research office. I think that was a great idea of splitting things apart there. I think previously there was probably a bit too much, not trying to insult people or anything, but I felt like the way it was set up before President or Jay Golden came, was that, I was kind of under the impression that a lot of the F&A went back into NIAR and not into academia. So that was just a comment there. I might have my facts wrong on that, but I feel like it was very positive change. This last summer, there were many students supported who would not have been supported. I think that was very positive for the university. And I obviously I didn't know Jay that well, but he met with me when we talked about high performance computing one time, and I feel like he had a very student centered philosophy. I mean, I think it was a big reminder, to myself. I mean, I'm a hardcore researcher, but I was like, yes, you need students, and research goes hand in hand with teaching, and it's. When students are the future of our world and nation. I think. For me, I think, then hopefully this will continue this idea of student-centeredness. I think it's very important. But if I'm a little worried about, not wanting to know why. I feel like there's no real discussion of like, well, why did this happen? And I feel like there's a lot of theories. I've heard about 3 different conspiracy theories over the weekend, and I think it's good to just figure this out. I know you gotta people don't want to look in the past, but I think sometimes you gotta understand why things have happened, so you can move forward and be better.
So I do know, Terrence, that the focus on students and being student-centered is something that is important to Rick. I think we saw a transition with President when Andy Tompkins was in the role. I think he started to move us in that direction in a way that that tried to get that done, and I know that there's been movement forward on that, but I take that seriously as well, and I think that's something to be shared with the Board of Regents. I also want to share a comment that I got anonymously, because I do think it's important to recognize we've been speaking out in a relatively positive rhetoric, I guess, is for lack of a better term, about President Golden. And I also recognize that that's not everybody's experience. And so I do feel it's important to share that. And so one question that I got, I am highly concerned that this meeting only leaves voice for a privileged group that thinks in a similar manner. For those students and faculty who have struggled with significant OIEC issues, Dr. Golden was not capable and are willing to address the much deeper system cultural problem at WSU. He was blatantly unresponsive, did not exercise transparency, etc. Terrence mentioned a cultural problem that if we have, we should deal with. However, even numerous articles from the Sunflower and Eagle highlight an ongoing issues, and we are all implicated to address these issues. So just to sort of share, I think, and it is important to understand that no human being is perfect. And I think you are hearing a lot of positive support, but I think that it would be incorrect and foolish to suggest that there aren't people who did not have a positive experience. And so I wanted to put that out there as well. All right, more voices. I think I don't know if these all came in the right order, but I'll start with Jim.
Well, there's a question from Jolynn in the chat about, is the voluntary incentive continuing? And then I have another question after Rick addresses that. If you could, please.
Yes, the voluntary incentive program, retirement program is continuing.
Okay, and then the question I had, kind of inspired by Terrence, related to research is, Jay had, I don't know if it became policy or it was just practice that if you're applying for a grant, there's a requirement to include students. Great idea to me. I'm happy if it continues, But is that something that's still happening? Is that a requirement for grant applications still, or is that something that's sort of left with Golden's resignation?
You want me to answer that, Alex?
Yes, please.
So again, this is one of the things that we're continuing to investigate and determine what things that we should continue and not. Personally, I think that's a good thing that we would require students to be on grants. Part of the whole thinking on that and the whole idea around that is to assure that students not only have applied experiences, but also to provide financial support for them. And we were trying to not only work through that with students on research projects, but other kinds of employment opportunities at the university. So that concept has been around for a while. And to try to encourage more of that is when that was put in place for research proposals.
Thanks, Rick.
Sorry, I'm trying to navigate a whole bunch of screens and make sure everyone's getting their needs met. Go ahead, Neil.
Okay, thanks. I just want to say that when we're thinking about we're thinking about how this happened and trying to figure out how it happened so it could not happen again in quite the same way, is we should avoid privileging Steve, Clark, or anybody's understanding of how all this worked. And to note that Clark made a couple of highly specific comments that I don't think that I haven't seen supported by others. One is the Midwestern values comment that Alex read from an anonymous person, that as a Southern Indiana farm boy, I certainly would say I don't think a lot of us agree with that. And also, it hasn't been mentioned yet, but Clark made very specific comments about problems with Koch Industries and with the Koch network of people who have money to possibly give to Wichita State University. And neither the Board of Regents or any university personnel, as I understand, has validated that particular comment. And while I'm not saying that's wrong, and the fact that he said it is interesting, but we shouldn't assume that he understands exactly how all this worked out. And his view is the view that ruled the day among the 9 regents. And we don't want to overcorrect for that particular problem when the problem might be much broader and might have things that would be surprising and disappointing on their own. Thank you.
Thanks. A couple of other comments, and then Aaron, I can get to you. There's also some comments in the chat I want to get to. An anonymous email that actually has come up a couple of times, and I do want to make sure that this kind of gets elevated. Although donors have maybe become too strong of a voice in the everyday operations and decisions of the university administration, administration, faculty, and staff need to remember, with the massive budget cuts at the state and federal level for our upper academy, many of our students would not have the scholarships or facilities that are currently available or may become available. So, I mean, there is certainly that tension that I think is important to recognize. I'll get to that one in a minute. Another anonymous email. My concern is that if this was a forced resignation due to unhappy donors, will this situation affect faculty freedom of speech in the classroom if a culture of fear is being created? By this, I mean fear that if we say something that gets back to a donor or a board member that they do not like, etc., our job's at risk. If the president was not relatively safe, what are the reaches to censorship sent from this message? It's certainly something that I will communicate to the board of that sort of shared concern. I think I've shared multiple times now with this body that there is a push for a freedom of expression, freedom of speech policy. And so this will be a place where we have to remind them that freedom of speech goes always, including from the faculty perspective. All right, Aaron, and then I'll read another comment, a couple of other comments. Go ahead, Aaron.
Since Andy Tompkins' name got brought up, I'm curious if you or Rick or anyone can offer any insight onto what is going on with the process for naming an interim president. as opposed to acting president, which Rick is. What the timeline for that might be, what the process might look like. Any details at all?
I don't have any information about that specifically. I do know that the Board of Regents needs to meet to discuss that. At this point, I don't know that a meeting has been scheduled. I know the last time Rick was put in this position, it was for a lengthy period of time, but a big part of that was because President Bardo was ill and had not resigned, and so there was an extended period of time where Rick was serving in that role. I don't know if my assumption is that will be a shorter period of time. Rick, do you have any information specifically about a timeline at this point?
No, and I think what you just said, Alex, summarizes it pretty good.
Okay. There have been a couple of comments sent to me and also in the chat about Steve Clark specifically having some sort of resolution or statement around him not chairing the search. I will say, so in an email that I received, there was a request to do an official poll of all of the faculty to whether this should be, whether we should send a statement in a favor or in opposition to asking to his role in the search. I think that's something we could do, is we could survey the whole faculty. We could make a statement as a Senate, a resolution as a Senate. I would be willing to entertain either or all of those. So, Chase, your hand is up.
Thank you. Just a question for Rick. Rick, the last time that you served as acting president, if I remember correctly, you served in the role of president on tenure and promotion cases, and I believe it was Linnea Glenn May that served in the role of provost. Is that going to hold again this time?
Yeah, well, what happened last time is because I was acting president and provost, so I couldn't serve in both. So if that's the case, when the reviews come to the university committee, we'll probably have a similar arrangement.
Okay, thank you.
There was a question over on the YouTube side of things, if a regents meeting will be public or also closed in regards to selecting the interim president. My assumption is that would be a closed meeting. So again, all I think we can do is communicate strongly what our desires are for that interim person and how we'd like the search to go forward. There was also an email asking if we could have asked the regents to do a hybrid sort of approach to a closed open search. Certainly, I don't know what that looks like, to be honest, but I think all searches are sort of hybrid in that way, and that they're closed until you bring in the final candidates, and then that becomes more open. So yeah, other questions, statements? I just want to make sure I'm getting everything. Like I said, I'm managing many screens. Oh, so a question I think that's coming through: would it be worth to do away with speculation whether or not Dr. Golden was liked? Again, I think that to do a faculty poll on his perceived likeness or unlikedness, certainly something that we could do. I think a question, I think honestly, so part of this is moving the Senate trying to move this forward means being explicit in what we would like to see from a search going forward. So I think that's part of the work that we need to do. So what I'm hearing is from so far is a push for an open search, a push for no NDAs for the faculty, some questions about who should be involved with that search. Neil, go ahead.
Just on the matter of a poll, I'm not sure this is the best way to use our resources. In particular, considering if the regions understand us as attempting to change their decision and the content of their decision, then I'm not sure that would be helpful to us and actually would possibly make a closed search more likely than it would less likely. And also, I'm not and right now we're at a situation where we have a president who is left in circumstances that most of us see as negative, a president that most of us liked a lot and some of us liked a large amount, and clearly spoke to a lot of our values. And so a poll, the fact of saying 90% of people would approve of him or 95% or 99% really isn't necessarily meaningful, and also might set us on a path to opposition to the Board of Regents, even when they exercise their authority in a way that we really don't have any ability to change. Thank you.
Yeah. There was a question in the YouTube chat that I want to bring up, which is, are we, and I think the we is by means WSU, addressing the students? There's only one statement on WSU today, and they are asking about all of this. Rick, I'd like you to take that if you don't mind.
The question is, are we addressing students? The issues that students, concerns that students have?
Yeah, especially around Jay's resignation specifically. And I think some of the concerns about what may change on campus or continue.
Yeah, so similar conversations that we're having here. I mean, immediately when I found out, I reached out to the Senate president or SGA president, but also I met with a group of students over the weekend to address their concern. Many of the same questions that you all have, and their concern is whether the university will continue to focus around, improving the student experience. Of course, that was a value that we had before, will be a value going forward. It's why we're here. There also had questions about some of the initiatives that we'd already started working on with the students in terms of some programming statements on additional spaces, new spaces on campus. They're interested in having a multicultural center, more 24-hour study spaces, more collaboration spaces. And those, as far as I'm concerned, were on the list of things to do prior to President Golden coming here, and we will continue to work on that. So, and actually, we had a meeting before the resignation, just mid last week, to talk about those. Vice President Terry Hall and myself, along with President Golden at the time, to make sure that we were all committed to that, and we still are. That doesn't change.
Thank you. I got I don't know if this one's supposed to be anonymous or not, so I'll just keep it anonymous, an email in terms of the Faculty Senate not supporting the new hire without an open search. It is even more important if we state that if they suggest a closed search, I don't care if they get the reincarnation of Mandela, we can't support him or her if it's not a transparent process. If we need to set up a fight with KBOR on it, I think it's worthwhile. I think there have been two other comments that are in conflict with each other, so I'll bring them together. One anonymous person asked if we have the ability to do a resolution of no confidence in the Board of Regents. That's certainly something we could do. A counter argument to that anonymously is that I think it's important that we work from a position of mending our relationship with KBOR rather than antagonizing them, which is what I feel from the Senate and faculty. Perhaps mediation is in order. I would also argue strongly for diversity to be an important consideration in the search. So I'm putting that out as two conflicting viewpoints on this. I think so. There are a couple other comments that have come in regards to Neil's statement. I agree with Neil. However, it'd be interesting to identify how the faculty, staff, and students felt about his plans, ideas, recommendations, initiatives, and future of WSU moving forward. Maybe something to consider and share with the next president. And then additionally, a sort of a similar, I respectfully disagree with Dr. Allen's comments just now. Whether faculty want more or less transparency, or whether it should pull what it wants, should not be a decision of the Senate, let alone one Senate member, but rather done in a democratic manner. Um, so, John Hammond, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to also ask a question from the chat, and the question, this is actually for you, Rick. When did you know the president was resigning?
Right before the announcement came out.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff Jarman, I see your hand up.
I guess I'm sympathetic to a bunch of the comments people and questions people have raised about what we might do with KBOR on a future search for a president. And while I don't know that this is the meeting where we should debate the merits of those, I guess I want to say that I think the next 12-ish months, short term, medium term, are way more important for us to focus on as a Senate than the next hire. And I think if we were going to do anything quickly, we should be communicating to KBOR how important it is this decision about the interim president is to us. And I don't mean to put Rick on the spot, but I will. I really think this is a moment where getting a placeholder is not what we need. We need somebody who understands where we've been, what we're doing, and how to make some of the tough, frankly, budget decisions. And the idea that we would bring somebody in who has no knowledge of the university and then make cuts, I think is, that doesn't sound like something that any of us would want. And I think we ought to focus on how we should tell KBOR who should help us make those decisions as the interim president.
So, Jeff, I just want to make sure I understand. Are you asking that we, are you suggesting that we would recommend to the Board of Regents that Rick stay as an interim president? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, look, so first, thanks to Rick for serving as our acting president again. And I do have a lot of faith in him. And I don't know that this is the meeting. Yes, I'm for that, but I don't know that we need to make that public in this particular meeting, as much as I think the role of our interim president will shape us in a period of big budget cuts, and getting a person who is not accountable because they've not been here and won't be here afterwards enables them to make decisions that are not necessarily in our long-term best interest. All of the questions we dealt with already about, is this program valuable? Is this going to continue? Those are all questions that we don't want an acting president to make, an interim president to make, and then a new president to make 3 times over in the next 12 months. That does not help us get through and get forward. We need some consistency is what I'm suggesting, which is why I'm thankful Rick agreed to serve as acting. I hope they take that into consideration when they pick an interim.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. I'm just trying to make sure I get everyone in there. Nick, I think I saw your hand up, but it's down now. Did you want to add to this?
Yes, I can make a comment. First, I'd like to second what Jeff said. I have great faith in Rick doing the right thing in the next year, so I would highly endorse him. But my comment was going to be, who's on the Board of Regents? Are they all just left over from Brownback, or has there been some new appointments from the new Democratic elected governor?
About 4 from the new governor, and I think 5 from the previous governor.
I think there's 3 from Laura Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just wondering if they actually represented the diversity of the entire state of Kansas. Clearly, the state of Kansas changed when they elected a Democratic governor recently. So, and if there was not enough Democratic representatives, I might say they weren't representing it well.
Yeah, they actually represent different parts of the state too.
Okay.
I should say they come from different parts of the state. I'm not sure about that representation because it's not a an elected official.
Okay.
To a point that was made already, we don't know why the president resigned. And so the composition of the Board of Regents may not be a relevant thing. We don't know that he was pressured by the Board of Regents to resign.
So a couple other things that I'm just getting attention to. A statement about who benefits the most with new leadership. Hopefully we will. And our students. But yeah, questions for a journalist to answer. Rick, I want to tie you down a little bit more, if you don't mind, on Jolene's earlier question about the VP position. I guess I know that you sort of said we're looking at funding for the diversity human resources position. And we hadn't identified funds for that. I guess, could you at least tell us where we are in the process? Like, is that a search that has begun and there's a finalist picked and we're just waiting or where are we at least with that?
Yeah, so they are in the process of doing interviews. I think they've had a first level of interviews and having a second round of interviews. I think they have narrowed the candidate pool down a little bit, but we haven't got to the point where anybody's been selected as a finalist. And I just want to say, I think Laura Kelly has appointed 4 members to the Board of Regents. I think that's correct. I can't remember if Alan Schmidt was appointed by her or not, but I know Cheryl Hellerson Lee was, Shelley Kiplinger, and John Roth.
There is also a question that came in through YouTube that I think you might be able to answer, Rick. Obviously there's a lot of speculation. Again, this goes back to my earlier statement about perceptions versus what the reality may or may not be, about the decision to move Ivanka Trump's speech to another part. And there was a question if Donald Trump had perhaps pressured the Board of Regents of the university to resign, for Jay Golden to resign. Do you know if President Trump personally reached out to anyone on the Board of Regents and asked for that?
I have no idea anything about that. No information.
I think we would have seen it on Twitter personally, but I don't think he would have done it privately. So yeah. I just want to keep making sure I'm getting to everything. Are there other statements, questions, comments that have not been answered yet? Any forward motion that the Senate would like to take? Chase.
Thanks. I would just encourage us over the next couple of meetings to keep talking about this and discuss what we might do in the form of a formal Senate resolution expressing the desires of senators related to the process and composition of a future search committee. It doesn't have to happen now, but I think we have plenty of time. But I think I would like to see personally the Senate take some sort of stand on this.
Yeah, I think that would be reasonable to do. So my proposal, there are things that the Senate needs to move forward on as well. There's been a bunch of regulation changes in Title IX that need to be brought to this group, not for changes, but for discussion. And also there's a new working group that we're trying to form, but this is easily something that can be put on the next Senate meeting for further discussion. So what I would ask of you as senators is to reach out to your constituencies in your college, gain information about how you would like us to move forward as far as a resolution to the Board of Regents. I think the more specific we can be in our requests, the better. So I agree with you, Chase. This certainly is not something we need to come to a resolution on today. Additionally, I guess a question for the group is if you would like me to reach out to the regents to see if we can have a regent attend a meeting. Is that something that we as a body would collectively find helpful?
I think it will be helpful only if they are willing to address the main question we have about the reason for the resignation.
Yeah. I don't think we'll get an answer to that, but we certainly can have someone to ask.
Can we ask Golden himself, President Golden?
I would agree that would be helpful.
Yes, I can. We could ask President Golden. My assumption is that any resignation came with some sort of non-disclosure form. I could be wrong, but certainly something that I could try to find an answer to.
To be clear, I meant ask a
yeah, ask a regent.
Yeah, not President Golden himself.
Yeah. I don't want to put Jay in a difficult situation for sure, but yeah. There was a question, Rick, for you that I'm going to let you take about why strategic communications was so late in getting information out on the resignation. Local news outlets got information out before many of our WSU communications efforts did.
So as far as what I remember last Friday happening is that the board wanted to release this information, and they released it probably around 1 o'clock. And then we followed that up later in the day with a dissemination of that release to the campus. We weren't allowed to do that ahead of their release.
Okay. Other questions, statements? I think I've gotten through all of my emails. If there was a statement I missed in the chat, please. There's a statement in the chat. Like many of the faculty, I also want to know what prompted Jay's resignation. However, we are not going to change that, and our energies are better placed in moving forward than seeking satisfaction. There's much to do in ensuring that the next president is chosen in a fair process and that the faculty can stand behind that person. Yeah. Other questions, statements, comments? All right. I will say one more comment that came in YouTube is that no one recognized Jeff Jarman without his bow tie. So, get your act together, Jeff. Just want everyone to know Jeff Jarman and I were supposed to be doing an Ironman yesterday, but it was canceled because of COVID. So good news is I'm not as sore as I would have been.
I didn't drown.
Yeah. So Shirley, and I see your hand up. Sorry, I missed that.
There was one question that I don't know if it was spoken of, but is President Golden's resignation effective immediately, or is he still on campus?
Good question. Rick, do you know the answer to that?
My understanding, it was effective immediately.
Thank you.
All right. Whitney Bailey.
There is quite a bit of chatter on the YouTube comments that faculty on campus would like to know Jay's experience, to not necessarily assume that he signed an NDA, and to perhaps reach out to him. So
that is something I'm happy to do. I will, I can't promise you I'll get any new information, but I'm happy to do so. I do have a contact number for him that I can do that. There was a statement in the chat that I'm not sure if the Senate will have any input to the interim president question. If not today, then probably it is going to be too late. So I guess that that seems to be a statement and sort of a request to make a more immediate statement about what we would like for an interim president, so that we don't miss our window of opportunity there. Neil?
On that matter, I think Jeff Jarman's comments about what we would look for in an interim president, not necessarily that it be Rick Muma, but the kind of qualities that he talked about are ones that I haven't heard anybody disagreeing with. And I think you were probably on solid ground communicating to Blake Flanders to communicate to the regents that we would definitely want someone with familiarity with WSU and our particular budgetary and issues and culture of student centeredness and faculty centeredness and all the wonderful things about us. And I think you would probably be reasonable in communicating that to them. And of course, also the idea of an open search. And I think it would be fair to basically say that unless you get some feedback within the next couple of hours, you could probably be on solid ground communicating that on behalf of all of us.
Okay. Any other comments, statements, hopes, dreams? Well, with that, we have time for some as may arise. Any as may arise?
Alex,
Yes.
in the YouTube chat, it says, FYI, a regent told me, and this is a reporter from the Wichita Eagle, that they plan to name an interim within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. So I think I would generally agree with Neil about a statement of sort of the qualities that have been shared. As far as a specific endorsement of us proposing an interim president or not, that I don't know that I would feel comfortable making that decision today, because I do believe as senators, you have a responsibility to go back and talk to your colleges to do that. So I think what I'm happy to pass along to the regents for right now is to say that these are the things that we've discussed. These are the qualities that we believe the interim should have, and that we plan on as a Senate making a more formal request and recommendation in the next, in the upcoming weeks, just so that they know that that's coming. I think that's at least a short-term way to fill that gap. Is that reasonable to everyone? Okay. Any other as may arise?
The physical plant needs to repaint the crosswalks, I think.
So noted. Acting President Muma, let your people know.
Thank you.
Anything else? Before I request a motion to adjourn, I would just, again, thank you everyone for your time on this, your input, your energy. I know that there's not a single person in this room, if you will, nor on the chat that saw this coming. And I want to echo the statements that I think we have a lot to deal with going forward. I'd like to be as helpful as I can in that process. So again, concerns, comments, please share them with me via email. If you'd like me to keep it anonymous, I'm happy to keep it anonymous. And I also, again, just want to thank Rick publicly for stepping into this role and doing it with the grace and class that he normally does these things. You are appreciated. I think that's a sentiment that's been expressed by many, so I will echo that. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Then all in favor, log off.
Hi.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.